Greetings, fellow wanderers. Creepy Oz here. I don't generally like to pop up and break character like this, but I just wanted to mention the first story in today's video. It's my own personal scary experience. This is the story of, well, what I believe to be an encounter with some kind of ancient, otherworldly forces whilst camping at a local waterhole. For full disclosure, this story has been narrated on Papa Scare's channel as well. Just wanted to quickly mention that, as I didn't want anyone who may have heard it over there thinking I was stealing content from Papa or anything like that. Okay, with all that out of the way, let's get into the story. My scary story probably occurred around 20 years ago. I'll recount it as best I possibly can. My older brother and I, we were camping at a little spot called Lulworth Creek. It was just outside of our hometown of Charters Towers, which sits a couple of hours west of Townsville in North Queensland. The spot we were at was a well-kept secret at the time, a tiny little patch of paradise where the water from the creek flowed over some rocks and then opened up into a beautiful waterhole. A great spot for camping. Just up the road a ways was Echo Hole, which Australian listeners may know of. So the day goes by, mostly uneventfully. We swam, we cooked, we drank, we ate. You know, the usual. As this was in the winter months at the time, the sun started to disappear around 7 p.m, so we lit up the campfire and began to settle in for the night. About an hour later, that's when the weird things started happening. It began with the fire. Now look, we were pretty experienced campers. We knew how to build a fire, obviously, and we knew how to build one to last the night. Which is why we were surprised, dumbfounded even, and more than a bit unsettled when we walked away to grab some things out of the car and returned to find the fire completely extinguished. This was not a rainy day. The fire was nowhere near the water's edge. It was not humid in any way. The air was hot and dry, and the firewood we were using, it was dry as a bone. There is no logical reason that this campfire should have extinguished. So, that was weird occurrence number one. More than a bit weird, sure, but easy enough to brush off. Occurrence number two came about a little while later. We were sitting around the fire that we had since got going again. Just sitting, enjoying the peace and quiet. Now, this is noteworthy, as it was deafeningly quiet. As I said, this spot, it was a well-kept secret. No one, and I mean no one at all, was anywhere within about 20 kilometers of us. And we would have heard them approaching from far away if they were. Suddenly, breaking the silence, we heard in the darkness the unmistakable sound of someone, yes, someone, jumping into the waterhole, even letting out a little yelp as they jumped. This one freaked us the hell out. Not just weird, not just a little spooky. No, this was one of those moments where you feel absolutely gripped and immobilized by stone cold fear rushing through your entire body. But what came next would make that initial sound seem like child's play. About 10 meters or less from us, the sound of wet footsteps running through the scrub, now on our side of the waterhole. I have played this through in my mind many times throughout the years. I have attempted to come up with any possible explanation as to what this could have been. But I swear to God, there was no one there. And yet, there was someone there. After this occurrence, we immediately began packing up the car. Now, important note here. As we were packing up, we had all of the car doors open to make it easier to load everything in. That becomes relevant in a moment. As we're walking back to the tent to start packing it up, out of nowhere, the entire thing just shifts sideways, as if a huge gust of wind blew into it. Or, more disturbingly, something or someone ran into it. There was no wind that night. I mean, the air was completely still. Just like the campfire thing from earlier, there was no logical reason that this should have happened. At this point, we thought, to hell with the tent, we'll get a new one. We are out of here. And this was the point at which the final occurrence of the evening took place and sent us barreling out of there as fast as our little Ford Laser would take us. Okay, let me try to explain this the best I can. Believe me, I know how annoying these overly detailed explanations can be in these stories, but just bear with me while I try to paint the picture for you. Okay, so the car was parked sideways, on an angle, right? The doors that were still open were on the side that was slanted down and opened all the way, so gravity was keeping them open. In an instant, with no wind, no breeze, no anything around, those doors slammed shut. That was it. Perhaps I can look back on this right now and question it with a logical mind, but in that moment, there was no question in our minds that we were being antagonized by some kind of otherworldly force, the intentions of which we had no clue, and certainly were not sticking around to find out. We jumped in that car and we booked it. To this day, I've never gone back to that waterhole. Ever. And I probably never will. Like I said, there's 1,000,001 logical explanations I could come up with looking back on it. But in my heart, I just know that every one of those is wrong. For years, I have been intrigued by the stories of Australia's convict past. This was a time when the British Empire had sent criminals to the far side of the world as punishment, forever severing them from their homeland. As an amateur historian and a treasure hunter, I spent my weekends scouring the Australian countryside, hoping to unearth remnants of this long-lost era. One Saturday morning, my metal detector led me to a remote and desolate area where the soil was parched and the trees were sparse. As I dug deeper into the earth, I discovered a large iron chest, one that housed inside a collection of tattered, leather-bound journals buried beneath years of accumulated dust and debris. Excitement coursed through my veins as carefully I brushed away the grime and opened the first journal. The pages were brittle and discolored, the ink faded, but the words were still legible. I felt a shiver down my spine as I began to read, immersing myself in the world of the journal's author, a convict named Thomas Jenkins.
12th of May, 1823. They say this new land is our punishment, but I believe it's far more sinister than that. We're not here to atone for our crimes, but rather to serve a dark and hidden purpose. The strange symbols etched into the walls of the caves we discovered today haunt my dreams, filling me with a sense of dread I cannot shake. "18th of May, 1823. We've been ordered to dig deeper. The foreman is relentless, driving us to the brink of exhaustion. The air grows colder and more oppressive as we descend. and I can't help but feel that we're digging our own graves. 23rd of June, 1823. Rumours are spreading amongst the men. Some believe the officers have discovered an ancient treasure, while others speak of the devil himself dwelling in these depths. All I know is that I feel a growing unease with every day that passes, and I can't help but wonder what terrible secrets lie hidden in the dark. 20th of September, 1823. We have unearthed something terrible. Deep within the bowels of the earth, we discovered an ancient chamber, adorned with grotesque carvings and adorned with bizarre symbols. The air was thick with malevolent energy that filled us with terror. Some of the men have gone mad, their minds shattered by the horrors we have witnessed. 12th of October, 1823. I can feel the darkness gnawing at the edges of my sanity. We are no longer just prisoners. We have become pawns in a game we cannot comprehend. The officers who once seemed stern now appear fearful, their eyes haunted by the very same dread that plagues my every waking moment. November 22nd, 1823. Something has changed. The officers are no longer giving orders. Instead, they seem to be taking them from the shadows that lurk in the corners of the caverns. The lines between master and servant has blurred, and I fear that we have all become slaves to the darkness that now surrounds us. February 10th, 1824. Our captors are no longer human. They have become monstrous beings, consumed by the very darkness they sought to control. We are trapped, our fate sealed by the very same malevolence that claimed our oppressors. I fear there is no escape from this nightmare.
That last entry in the journal was a desperate plea, a warning to any who might stumble upon the truth. As I closed the book, I realized that I had stumbled upon a secret that was never meant to see the light of day. With trembling hands, I placed the journals back into the chest and placed it back into the hole from which they had been unearthed. My heart raced as I covered them with dirt, ensuring that they would remain hidden from the world. I couldn't help but feel a sense of responsibility, as if I had been entrusted with a terrible truth, one that I must protect at all costs. I knew I could never forget these words I had read, nor the horrors that had been revealed to me. This knowledge weighed heavily upon my soul, filling me with a sense of dread and unease that I knew would linger for the rest of my days. Yet, as I walked further from the journal's resting place, I could not shake the feeling that I was being watched. Every rustle of leaves, every creak of a tree branch, it sent shivers down my spine. The shadows seemed to stretch and twist, as if reaching out to ensnare me in their dark embrace. I knew that I had unearthed a secret that was best left buried, and that my life would never be the same again. The ghosts of the past haunted me, and I couldn't help but wonder if the darkness that had claimed the souls of those long-dead convicts would one day come for me as well. I vowed to never return to the place where I had found these journals, hoping that by leaving them undisturbed, I could somehow escape this nightmare that had been unleashed. But deep down, I knew that the darkness I had glimpsed would forever cast its shadow over my life, a chilling reminder of the terrible secrets that lie hidden just beneath the surface of the world. I've been revisiting this memory in my head for a while now lately, and I recently joined Reddit, so I thought I would share it with you all. I'm an Aussie, been so all my life. Australia is known for its heat, g'days and kangaroos. Well, that's what most of the world thinks about us anyway. The outback may not have earthquakes, but it sure as hell does have floods, and big ones. And in a flood is where I first saw it. The 2011 Brisbane flood was, no doubt, a major catastrophe. I'm not sure of the exact details, but around 2,000 people died. Over 1 million were deemed homeless. Unfortunately, I was one of those million. I can specifically remember the rain. The endless rain that came down for days on end. Rain and rain and more rain. I didn't get the news until it was too late. Yeah, I know what you're thinking. Why didn't you get to higher ground? Well, I'm not social. In fact, this is the first public website I've interacted with, so I didn't hear the warnings. I didn't see the weather radar. I didn't even hear the evacuation siren. I didn't know until the water started leaking under the laundry door, and by then, I couldn't even open the door to get out. Somehow, I managed to get out of my house, but even after that, I was stuck standing on my car, which just had the roof poking out of the water. I was surrounded in a torrent of water in every direction, trying to drown me. Cars were being swept away, trees, whole trees, being pulled by the force of the water. It was then, on that car, that I first saw it. It was black. It was shaped like a dog, but it had 2 legs, and it was standing upright on them. It was pacing around on top of my neighbor's house, and occasionally it stopped to look around. I was scared. I was really scared. But what I distinctly remember, what I really remember, was that it turned around and looked straight at me. It was clutching something in its mouth, and as I looked closer, I could make out a heart. A human heart in its mouth. A real, once alive heart. But that was it. As soon as it saw me, it disappeared. Just vanished. No smoke, no vapor, just a blink, and it was gone. Shortly after, I was rescued by the state emergency service. The flood cleared up and I began to fix my broken life. In all the stress of rebuilding my life, I'd forgotten about the dog thing. After a couple of years, my life had pretty much gone back to normal. I was living in a new house with a nice job and I was doing a degree at university. I actually quite enjoyed it. It was visual arts. I enjoy creativity and making things. Art is my passion, and it's what I excelled at in school. So, I'm riding home one day from uni after a long day of studying for upcoming exams. It's about 7, so it's quite dark. I see it again that night. It was lying down this time, right in the middle of the road. I still can't believe that no cars came along and ran over it. Then again, the street I was on was pretty quiet. Just a lonely street where the occasional car is coming home from work. But this dog thing, it still creeped me out. It was sitting there. I'm still not sure if it was either sleeping or unconscious or something. Maybe a car did run over it, I don't know. But all of a sudden, its eyes snapped open. It scared the hell out of me. It had these pure white eyeballs. They looked kind of like marbles. But again, after about 5 seconds or so, it disappeared in the blink of an eye. I still remember that night, standing there, still, frozen. Eventually I shook it off, and I rode the rest of the way home. I did Google this when I got home. I found some stuff, but the top result was that a black dog means death. I thought, this stuff is just folklore. It's crap. Again, I forgot all about it, and I resumed my normal life. But just recently, I've come across this dog again. I had just been to the local supermarket to get some groceries for the upcoming Christmas with my family. Again, coincidentally, this is at night. I'm driving along the road when a car in front of me suddenly swerves into the barrier on its right. We're going a good 70 kilometers per hour, so when the car in front of me smashes into the one that's blocked the road up, there's no problems creating some wrecked cars. I pound on the brake, hop out to see if everyone's okay. I was able to get the driver that smashed into the blocked one out, but the other car, it burst into flames right before my eyes. I turn around, and that dog is standing there. Again. It's just looking at me, eyes wide open, standing up on those 2 legs again. I was used to this by now, and I just waited for the inevitable moment that it would disappear. But it didn't. It just stood there, while everyone else was busy with the commotion of the cars. I began moving towards it, but still, it just stood there. I closed my eyes and rubbed them. When I opened them back up, he was revealing his massive teeth. Not proportional to the rest of his body. They were huge. Slowly, I backed away and turned back to the crash. When I turned back to him, he was gone. I'm still researching on some of these topics on the dog, but I want to know, have any of you seen anything like this before? If you have any information, please feel free to let me know.